Hello everyone, I am your host Ingrid Thompson and welcome to So You Want to Start a Business episode number 69. Our guest today is Ronan Leonard and here is what he has to say about the ideal customer.
My definition of an ideal customer is that your ideal customer will pay you what you ask because they're too busy doing their other things and will pay you that because it's a shortcut solution. That's what they want. Your worst customer has so much time on their hands that they'll pick your brains, they want all your free stuff, and they don't have the money to ever be your customer. And when they do, they'll complain anyway. So knowing the two different people can be the difference between tearing your hair out and sacking the ones you don't want and attracting the right ones.
I knew when I heard Ronan say this during our interview that this would be one of the key messages from our conversation. In fact, there are quite a few really different messages about starting and running a business in this conversation with Ronan. There's also a pretty amazing story about a cruise ship right near the end, a slight diversion from our usual conversation about business startups. As always, this episode is brought to you by my book with the same name as the podcast, So You Want to Start a Business. There's never any advertising here, apart from the book. Head over to where you buy books online for the Kindle or the physical book, and I'm working on the audio version, so that will be coming very soon. If you want a taste of what the book is about, head to thestartupsteps.com and there's an extract of the first 20 pages just waiting right there for you. Anyway, enough from me. Let's get to what Ronan has to say about starting his own business and so much more. Are you ready? Let's go.
Hello, and here we are today with Ronan Leonard, the Mastermind guy. Good afternoon, Ronan.
Ingrid, welcome and thank you for having me on your show. Looking forward to it.
Thanks so much for joining us. So tell the listeners and me, what is your business? What business are you in?
I'm in the mastermind business. Ostensibly, what I do is I connect people into mastermind groups online, and I also teach subject matter experts how to run their own mastermind groups to get closer to their audience. And if you've never heard the mastermind concept before, ostensibly, it's a group of people that come together to help each other and create this supermind. So they all work on different problems, ideas, and effectively, it's very hard in business to know everything. It's impossible. So what you do is you crowdsource that problem you're stuck with or idea you're struggling with, and you get everyone else to give you their own opinions, ideas, and people have done that. So effectively, you shortcut your way through to finding some of the roadblocks and the problems you have in your business.
We are going to explore this a little further, how you actually turn that into a business. So let's just do a little of the other questions. When did you start this business?
I started this business 2 years ago, but I've been in business for almost 15 years now.
Doing different kinds of things, kind of related to this in some ways, isn't it?
Some of it, yes, some of it completely outside of that.
So why did you start this business?
I started this business to scratch my own itch, like a lot of people that start a business. I was in a mastermind group about 4 years ago as part of an online course. And actually, the mastermind was the best part of the course. To connect with other people and start to bounce those ideas around each other. I'm struggling with this. What do you think about that? Can you give me some help with this? And for me, it was a light bulb moment because the previous decade or so in my business, I didn't have a sounding board. I would really just go home to my wife and unload that I'm struggling with this. This is a problem. And as smart as she was, she didn't have all the answers either. And she's not in business. She's in the corporate world. So I found that for the very first time, I had a sort of tribe around me that supported me. And then when that finished, I looked around to easily join another group and I couldn't find too many. So I started my own business and I started a platform to connect people to masterminds.
That's fantastic. And I love that expression, to scratch your own itch, because it's so true. So many businesses start because it's the thing that you need and nobody else is doing it. We've interviewed lots of people with that. So now and you've alluded to the answer to this question, but what did you actually want from your business from day one?
I wanted to connect to a lot of people. I wrote down my whole why before I started this business. Because I feel that a lot of people start business and they don't really know why. They think it's to make money. And Ingrid, it's not. It's to have a bigger purpose than that. Look, in your early 20s, everyone's been sold on the internet, buy the Ferrari and the mansion and the laptop lifestyle and all that BS. But ultimately, people start a business and successful business, because they've got a deeper why. they want to help somebody, or they've got a itch to scratch. So knowing that why for me was really important. And I literally spent about 6 months. I wrote down all the things I was good at, key moments in my life. I went back to when I was in my 20s and worked on a ship that sunk, and all these sort of key things about sort of helping people came out. This sort of message came out. And what I really know is that we're only good at one or two things. It's our genius zone. Some people never ever find them, and some people actively look for them. And when you do, it makes being in business so much easier, because you just in flow and you understand why you're there and what you're doing. And I think that's a key critical point, because every small business owner gets huge ups and downs, roadblocks in the way, and your why is what helps you push through those and keep you going. It's not the dollar figures.
No, it's not. And if you don't have that purpose, those mornings that you wake up, or those things that happen that just really knock you for six, is if you don't have that why, it's very, very hard to recover from that, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. You're easily going to give up. And you hear all the stories of the people that persevered, the Walt Disneys of this world, the Colonel Sanders and J.K. Rowling. They got rejected all those times. And I believe, and obviously they're an extreme example, but I believe that they had their why. They knew deep down that this is what they were meant to do. And that gets them over all those rejections, all those failures, or whatever you want to call it. For most people, it's learning. It's only a failure when you stop. So that's the difference.
And I think I could add Elon Musk to that list of people. Having read his autobiography, his biography, that the numbers of times he's been absolutely at rock bottom, and yet just because he's so driven by his why, it's such another good example. So let's hope those things don't happen to you. So this is one of my favourite questions: is when did you realise that this business was real? When did this business feel like you were in business?
Well, I say there are two different things. There are two different sales. The first sale is to yourself when you're starting a business, because if you don't believe it, then no one else will. So that very first sale is always to yourself. Can I do this? Now, you don't always know 100%. So to me, that's the first one. That it's the sale to yourself before it's to anyone else. And then ultimately, the second one is your first paying customer, where you sit down and go, okay, somebody's paid me for that. That's cool. That's amazing. I didn't know if I could do it. So there's two pivotal moments to me. That's the two.
Okay, that's terrific. And you never forget that first customer, do you? You never really, that moment when, however it's done, it just happens and you go, wow, someone actually did pay me for that.
Exactly, yes.
So that leads me to the next question. So this was your itch that needed scratched. How did you know that there were other customers out there that wanted what you were offering? How did you know this was viable, that it would lead somewhere?
I interviewed someone recently on LinkedIn, and this was a really good question and discussion we had. Effectively, you want to be looking for people that have a pain point, otherwise people won't pay. And often Google is becoming more and more a problem solving one. So yes, YouTube, you can go on and look at cat videos, but ultimately if you start to think, what are people typing in and what are they looking for as a problem? So if nobody's typing in your solution, then you probably don't have a business or the problem. But if people are typing that in, you can still come up with a different way to solve that problem, but you actually have to find that people have that problem first. So I was looking around and people were looking for masterminds. How do I join a mastermind? How do I get help and support and advice? And when you start to look for those questions and more of them, it's a little bit like buying a new car. And once you buy that car, you see them everywhere, don't you?
Yep. Yeah. So you had a good idea from looking at your research and understanding what people were asking for, that there was a call for this mastermind product that you offer.
Yes. Often you don't need to reinvent the wheel, and you don't need to come up with something that's completely new, but you can put your own twist on things, and you can improve something, you can modify something, you can give a different sort of spin on that. So it doesn't always have to be, I've got this brilliant idea, no one's ever thought of it. Hopefully it'll work, because often it doesn't.
No, and in fact, sorry.
Yeah. If you are in that sort of light bulb moment, the first thing to do is to ask sort of 5 people, would you pay for it? And sometimes the best way is to actually get them to commit their dollars. Because people will say, yeah, I'll buy that, and then won't. If you're
Yeah.
about to build something, say, okay, put a deposit down and I'll build it. But if I don't build it, I'll give you your money back.
Yeah, and the actual transaction is the commitment rather than the intention for a transaction. And they're two quite different things, aren't they?
Yes, yeah. And
Yeah.
one that validates a point and the other one doesn't.
And that's that whole idea of the minimum viable product, where you create the minimum of whatever it is and see if people will actually start paying money for it.
Yeah.
So it sounds to me like this isn't a particularly capital intensive or equipment intensive business, but how did you fund the business in the early day? And you did mention that you had other businesses. So, were you running other businesses at the same time, or how did you fund the early days of this one?
Yeah, I funded this through my existing business. Basically, I took any sort of surplus cash out of that one and plowed it into this one. So that's how I funded it.
Yeah, because a lot of people aren't sure how to fund a business. Some businesses take less than others, and some people transit from a job or transit from another business. So your other businesses supported this one. So how do you find new business? How do you find new customers now? How do you know where they are?
That's a good question. I think everyone has to find their own way of reaching out to them or finding them or scratching that itch, as we talked about earlier. I find LinkedIn's pretty good for all sorts of reasons. Good for collaboration. It's good for people that are looking. Advertising still works, although Facebook is getting a lot more expensive than it was. I think the halcyon days about 4 or 5 years ago, when people just threw up a crappy ad and paid 10 cents a click. I think those days are gone. So I think it's getting harder to find customers. I think for most people, to be honest, certainly advertising, Google AdWords is far more expensive. Some of those clicks are $50, $60 a click in highly competitive markets. So I think you've got to test your verticals, and also once you know your perfect avatar, you know where they hang out the most. So often for B2C, that is Facebook. B2B, sometimes LinkedIn is better. But again, it's one of those things that you can make assumptions, but you need to test.
And indeed, I couldn't agree with you more. I saw a post recently on one of the forums, and it said if there was one word or two words that you could say you need more of in your business, and out of something like 1,000 comments, almost all of them were new customers, new clients, more clients. That whole, as you say, it's getting harder and harder for people to find clients for what they are actually offering.
I've also got a bit of a take on that. I think if you're needing more and more customers, sometimes your price point isn't correct. It's too low. Sometimes your value model isn't there. If you can turn what you do into a subscription model, then you eliminate some of those lumps. And ultimately, one of my key phrases is that if you keep getting customers in the wrong price, you're going to burn out. Setting your price is really crucial, and how you package up what you do, because ultimately you need more and more customers at low price. You end up just burning out.
Absolutely. And that just leads me to my absolute next question is, can you explain your process for deciding a pricing strategy? It doesn't actually need to be the detail of your pricing strategy, but what philosophy do you use behind choosing a strategy for what you're using? And you mentioned there are a couple of different ways of pricing. What's the philosophy behind those in your mind?
Ultimately, for me, I think this is a key mistake that a lot of people make. They base a lot of it just on an hourly rate. So when you start a business, what you tend to do is pitch your service below average because you're just starting out. And the problem with average is that average sucks. Nobody wants average. It's like vanilla ice cream on the menu. You only choose it if there's not a better flavor. It's your last choice. So I believe that people should be looking at the outcome that they provide and asking more questions. And the more you can ask more questions about your customer, what could I have done differently? What can I do? What would be better? What else do you need? And the more you can actually do research within your demographic, the more you're going to truly understand what they value, what they pay for, and ultimately how you can differentiate yourself. So it's a combination of outcome more than just the service you provide. That's a key one, which a lot of people don't understand. But then ultimately your price comes through to everything: the market, your branding, your experience, your mindset around pricing. We talked about being excited about the first customer, and that's a huge thing. That if you don't have the confidence to charge $50, $100 an hour, $200 an hour, whatever that is, or package your service up and charge $3,000, then you're going to struggle ultimately. So that all goes into that pricing matrix.
And you mentioned earlier, thank you for that. You mentioned earlier about a customer avatar. This isn't one of my normal questions, but what's your philosophy about that avatar? It sounds like you're quite clear who your avatar is.
Well, the clearer you are on who your ideal customer is, the more you can write everything to them, all your website copy, all your marketing, and you will still attract people outside of that. But at least you're defining roughly who you want to speak to. Is it someone that earns $2 million a year? Is it somebody that plays in the health industry? Is it somebody that is, spends $100 on a bottle of wine and no problem? So knowing that really sort of helps you narrow down your market. Because obviously one of the biggest mistakes is that we all think that everybody's a customer. If we've got a fairly, I say generic, even if you're a plumber, you think, oh, everybody in my area is a customer. But are they? And do you want all of those customers? Do you want a better paying customer? So you pitch in where you are in the market and almost niching down. We talked about this before we come on air. Is really important for you to get clearer on who your ideal customer is.
And if you think about that plumber, could that plumber actually cope with everybody in their suburb? If everyone in their suburb needed plumbing in the next month, would there actually be capacity for that plumber to do everybody's plumbing so the reality is you don't want everybody. You want your ideal avatar because they're the person that will be easy to work with. They're the people who'll pay you, the people who'll do the work in between or do the follow-up, and they're actually ideal. That's why they're called the ideal avatar.
Yeah, my definition of an ideal customer is that your ideal customer will pay you what you ask because they're too busy doing their other things and will pay you that because it's a shortcut solution. That's what they want. Your worst customer has so much time on their hands that they'll pick your brains, they want all your free stuff, and they don't have the money to ever be your customer. And when they do, they'll complain anyway. So knowing the two different people can be the difference between tearing your hair out and sacking the ones you don't want and attracting the right ones.
Ronan, I have to say that will be one of the copyable moments in this. I love that definition of the ideal because they're so busy doing what they do, they're not going to have time to quibble about things. That's just precious. Thank you. So a slight change of direction. Do you have an exit strategy for any of your businesses? You don't have to tell us what it is, but have you thought about what happens at the end or next?
No, I don't actually. I haven't thought of that. I hadn't thought of my previous one, and I probably stayed in it too long. I might have exited a couple of years before. That probably would have been ideal for me. So it's a good question. It's probably something that might be on my radar in the next sort of 3 years or so, but not this early. Because I also understand that small business owners, you effectively, when you exit, you're selling yourself out of a job, especially if you haven't systemized it out the wazoo and it becomes this profit generating. I only need to work 20 hours a week if I want to, or so that's the key difference for most people. It's their income and their job, not just their business. So people don't think about exit because they go, well, what am I going to do next?
And that is one of the reasons I asked that question in this series is that, Stephen Covey said, begin with the end in mind. And I know he wasn't talking about starting a business and exiting it, but you really do set up a different structure in a business if you are thinking it's something you want to sell. But, I interviewed the gorgeous Kate Toon, and she said that one day she'll just turn it off. Like that's her plan, is that there'll be a day when she just stops doing what she does. And that's her exit strategy. She's got clauses in all her online programs that say, everything has a 6-month usability or, she's got clauses that protect her in that way. But she said she imagines one day it will just stop. And that's what you're talking about is the person who actually is the business, it is their job. And so when you stop doing it, effectively the business ends. Whereas there are people who are actually, wanting to build something that either will be a legacy to children or will be something they can sell. And lots of people dream of, being taken over by the big guys. So it is something to think about. Yeah, it's a good question. Thank you. What is one thing that you wish you had done differently at the beginning? Now, you may or may not have this answer for this particular business, but maybe somewhere in your businesses, is there something that now, as you reflect, you think, well, if I'd done that differently, there would have been a different outcome?
I'm still doing it now. I firmly believe that you should be asking more questions to more people more often, and just double checking spells, especially if you don't have a co-founder. A co-founder is my theory around this is that a co-founder doesn't just do twice the amount of work, so you don't get twice as much done with a co-founder, but you also get to shape those good ideas into great ideas, and you get to bury the bad ones. So to me, having a co-founder in a business for a lot of people is the fast track to success, just because you're getting that sounding board, and it's a little bit like a mini mastermind. You two minds come together and they create this third super mind. So for me, it is still ongoing. I'm trying to constantly pick people's brains and ask them questions. And there's nothing wrong with asking for help. This is the thing that a lot of people sort of have this ego around asking for help. So let me ask you, if you went to a foreign country and you were lost and you don't speak the language, would you ask for help? And the answer is yes. But you're in business and you're going, okay, this isn't quite working for me. Ask people, ask around. People do like to genuinely help. So that would be my key takeaway.
Okay. And slightly different question, is there something you really wish you had known from the start? And I know it's sort of the same question, but it's slightly different. Was there anything that if somebody had been able to say to you, here's some information or some facts that would have made a difference from the beginning?
I don't know, because I don't think there's one light bulb moment where this would have changed everything. But to me, probably more around habits and rituals. I found, and I know I did this for 6 or 7 years in my previous business. What I would do is I would open up my computer, or people open up their shop, and they say, what's the world going to throw at me? And I'm far more strategic now in blocking out my time, working on my highest leverage, my most important task at the start of the day, before you get into that whirlwind of non-urgent but important tasks. The Stephen R. Covey quoted him. So I think that's the sort of key difference is if you can be more intentional around your time and your structure, that's a key thing for me that a lot of business owners don't work on.
And it's such a good point, because we are the master of everything, or we are the manager or the head of every department in our business. And those other departments can steal our time so easily rather than getting on with what we have to do. And particularly if people have come from a corporate job where all of those things are just taken care of for them. The IT department takes care of all the IT, and, there's certain things that are just done. It's very easy to lose a day in all of that humdrum admin, isn't it? Rather than actually focusing on, as you said, the stuff that's the vital of the business.
Yeah, the minutiae can kill you. It's painful.
It really is. Now, you mentioned your charming and smart wife, and you mentioned your previous mastermind group, but this is a question about who has been of greatest assistance to you. You can either mention names or just philosophically, and it sounds like the mastermind group was really helpful, but who's been of greatest assistance in your business?
The greatest assistance was when I started my first business. I sunk my life savings into it. I moved to Australia. I used to work on cruise ships. I moved to Australia and I set up a casino party business. And in the first year, I hadn't got a single customer. And I'd been to networking events. I'd done a small business course. I was trying to do marketing, did yellow pages online. None of it worked. And then I met this guy called Peter Briggs, and he showed me how to do basic SEO. This was back well over a decade ago. And for me, it was a light bulb moment. And within 2 weeks, I got my first full paying customer and I was off and running. And sadly, he passed away a few years ago, but I'm entirely indebted to him, because he was the person that saved me from potentially giving up. I'm pretty stubborn. I was still sort of going, but I was really, really struggling. And he was the one that effectively showed me what potentially business could do. And I'm forever indebted to him, and I mention him all the time. So to me, although he sort of became a bit of a mentor, but yeah, that was the person that for me changed everything and gave me what I am today.
Isn't that fantastic? And we are going to come back to that cruise ship story before we finish this podcast, because I think it's one that certainly is worth sharing with the listeners. But we'll just continue with this track just for now. So given that Peter Briggs was somebody who really helped you at that stage, who can give you good and useful feedback? Where do you get good feedback from, you personally?
I get good feedback within the mastermind groups. That's the whole point of them, that you get that sort of feedback. But like I said, I'm constantly sort of asking people, what do they think of that? What about this? Sometimes they're free, sometimes they're paid. I think there's this fallacy around having a coach or a mastermind or somebody that you pay. But ultimately, like I said earlier, you can't know everything. It's impossible. And you want people that have done what you've done, that can show you the fast route. So that's an investment. So if you invest in somebody that can teach you what you don't know and can quickly grow your business by 10, 15%, and then 15% the next time, and year on year, then whatever you pay them, even if it's $3,000 or $5,000, surely that's worth it. But there is this fallacy around thinking, look, I can find it all from YouTube and from blog posts and from podcasts, and I can get all that information as being commoditized. It's everywhere. But still talking or paying somebody that says, this is what you need to do, let me show you, and step them through it. That's the difference between content and context and how that applies to you.
Yeah. And I think that it's such a good point, because all the information that's available on the internet is generic, really. Even if it looks like it's specific, it's actually quite generic. But if you want help with your own business, it's something like your mastermind. It's like coaching that actually is specific to what that individual needs at that time. So yeah, terrific answer there. Thank you for that. So someone comes to you and says, I'm thinking about starting a business. What do you say to them?
Think again. Now,
can I tell you, so many people that I interview say, don't. No, wait a minute. Let me
Yeah. Look, it's never as easy as you think. Unfortunately, the highlights reel, which has always been the case of people on Facebook and YouTube that are crushing it, they obviously get all the oxygen because they're the 1%ers, or they're the 0.01%. So the reality and between what you think it's going to be and what it is are two different things. And we touched on this earlier. Knowing your why, really, really important. Knowing who you want to serve, which is a part of that, is also very important. And also letting go of your ego, because ultimately you might think you're the best at something, or you've got the best idea, or I'm going to be fabulous because somebody's been paying me in the corporate world to be that person. But like you said, having all those other hats and having to learn all those other things that take you away from your genius zone make it a lot harder than people realize. Because if business was so easy, we'd all be multi-millionaires, wouldn't we? and we're not. So my advice is to really think about it, go in for the right reasons, test your ideas, keep on pivoting, keep on working on it, and ultimately, when you've got those, you're far less likely to give up, and you're far more likely to make a go of it. And I wouldn't even use the word success, because success means different for things, different people. It's a little bit overused. But ultimately, you're your own benchmark of what you want to do and what sort of difference you want to make.
And it is really about that big why, that who you're serving, what solution, what value you're adding. And it for me, sometimes it's about what we're actually creating in the universe. How are we actually making everything better? Not just running a business for my own money. That's, that sort of doesn't really work that well, does it?
Yeah, service is the one thing, is who you're serving. Ultimately, business is really, in its simplest form, you are helping somebody solve a problem at a price they're happy to pay for. Simple as that. So you are a problem solver and you're helping people. Sure, there's a transactional value into that. And it's as simple as that. And I think big business tends to lose sight of that when they talk about shareholders. And I think people that have marketed, like I said earlier, when they marketed that, this laptop lifestyle, or you can own this huge house and a yacht and everything, most of that is BS. The vast majority of people that are in business are there to help people, and they love their customers and they love solving those problems.
And they wake up every morning wanting to do that and take care of people.
Yep.
Yeah. So now, last question about you. What are 3 characteristics that you think you have that make you successful in business? And you have alluded to a few of them as we've gone through the interview. But if you were to just give those 3 characteristics as an answer, what would they be?
Definitely perseverance.
Mm-hmm.
One. Another one would be I'm really good at habits. Mostly good ones. There's a few bad ones, but I'm actually good at that. And the other one is my superpower is, and this sounds really, really trite and dull, is that I actually do what I say. And so if someone says, I'll send you this information, I'll send it. If I say I'll get this done to you by Friday, I'll get it done. So I'm actually one of these people that is true to my word. And to be honest, this is just me venting. I don't think there are enough of those people in the world these days.
No, I think you're absolutely right there. And it is one of the things that differentiates a business from other businesses, is that being able to be true to your word and staying on target to what you say you're doing. Thank you. Now, can you tell us about the cruise ship? Because you did allude to that you were on a sinking ship. And so do you want to tell us about that story before we go? Because it's very inspiring. Thank you.
It's inspiring to the people. For me, it was actually a lot of fun, which sounds a little bit trite almost, but nobody died. So that was more luck than design. So at 23, I got my dream job working on cruise ships. Within 6 weeks off the wild coast of South Africa, we hit a very violent storm and the ship started taking in water. Now, the officers and crew didn't tell us. They kept that one a bit of a secret to themselves. So it was all through sort of word of mouth that this was happening. We knew the lights had gone out, something went wrong. So they filled the first lifeboat with women and children. And on the other side of the ship, most of the senior officers and crew left, leaving me working the gift shop, the cruise director, the band leader, the magician, to put people in the rest of the lifeboats, to coordinate some kind of rescue, even though we had virtually no training in that. And so for years, I just told all the funny things that happened, so many funny things happened. So for example, there's no more lifeboats and we're all in the main sort of lounge area, and the band are playing a few songs to keep people sort of off their minds, off the fact that we're in this storm, there's no lifeboats left, we're sinking, it's dark, nothing we can do. And they're singing Bye Bye Mr. American Pie. And then they get to the lyrics of "This'll be the day that we better change songs to something else." So for years, I was known. I worked for another 9 years on cruise ships. They produced this safety video of not what to do when I was on there. So I would join new ships, Royal Caribbean, and people say, you're the guy that's on that safety video, not what to do. So I became sort of well known in the cruise line industry. And for me, because I was quite young and I suppose a little bit naive, and I don't know how you're going to react. You have all these preconceived ideas about what the captain should do and what people in authority should do, and they all discharged their responsibilities. They all sort of panicked, and I didn't. I was one of the few that didn't. So to me, it was just it was an intrinsic sort of core value that I have, which is one of the reasons why I set the Masterminds up of helping other people, because it just tied into me. But yeah, ultimately it was a lot of fun, good life lesson because I survived it, and a good story to tell when I'm out at parties and people want a bit of a laugh.
And on podcast interviews. But seriously, how did you all get off the ship if there were no lifeboats left?
Well, there was still about 170 people on board because we were sinking quite slowly. This started to happen about 11 o'clock at night. We were only a mile off the coast of South Africa, but the 60-foot swells, 160-kilometer-hour winds. The weather was appalling. So there was all these boats around us, all these other ships around us, but they couldn't get anywhere near. So it calmed down a little bit, and because we sunk quite slowly at 6 o'clock in the morning, helicopters came from South Africa and they started winching people off. So I spent another 3 hours helping people to get winched off. And I finally jumped into the water, and I got picked up by a lifeboat, which was from a container ship, was on its way to Argentina. And they picked us up on there. So there was 20 odd crew on there and this huge container ship, and about 50 of us rescued. And they had to divert into South Africa and drop us off the next day. So that's how I eventually got off and survived.
And it's quite a survival story. Do you think it actually changes how you approach things? Like, do you feel like it makes you braver? Or, it obviously, as you said at the beginning, it comes into your serving people, your why, that you really are a super helpful person, and that underpins what you do. Do you think in some way that has affected your ability to take risks or to step into challenges?
It definitely made that a little bit easier. It also made me question authority a bit more. I think there's this horrible phrase around sort of sheeple. There are people that just sort of accept things and go along with the norm. So whenever I see a politician on the radio or the news, or I see somebody in authority preaching, I can at least sort of step back and say, okay, well, I don't believe everything you say just because you've got a stripe on your shoulder or you're in a certain position of authority. You've still got to earn that respect. So I tend not to automatically defer to people in authority just because they're in authority, because I've seen the flip side.
Yeah, I can't believe that they all just scarp it off on the other side of the boat.
Yep. Yeah. It was a whole comedy. Like I said, you couldn't write the script. It was that good.
Couldn't write the script. Thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything else that you would like to add? And do you want to tell us just a little bit about your mastermind group? Like, I think there would be people very interested to understand how it works, how they can contact you. We don't really do much sort of selling on this podcast, but if you wanted to just give a description so that if anybody is particularly interested, because I know coaching, mentoring, masterminding, it's all part of how we support people in business. And so it might be interesting for people to understand how you work.
Yeah, sure. So effectively, I take people through a 13-week program to figure out what's their one or two biggest roadblocks or biggest things that they can change, because you can't do everything in 13 weeks, and show them a different way to do things, get them to sort of start to work on some accountability and goal setting, and just get them into that flow of working on their business, just not in the business. But I also teach people that are subject matter experts how to package up and run their own masterminds, because ultimately, in this fast-paced world, I think more of us are being commoditized. If you are a bookkeeper, then there are thousands of bookkeepers. If you're a growth hacker, there's 21,000 on LinkedIn. So how to differentiate yourself? And if you are good at what you do, how do you package that up and show other people? Because as you said, Ingrid, people just sort of want to know what other people have done and how they've done that. Rather than sort of spending the long, you can do it yourself and you can spend a couple of years trying to figure that out. But if you can find a shortcut to say, okay, this person does exactly what I want to do, I'd pay money for that. It's pay, $3,000-$5,000, whatever it is, to go, okay, here's the shortcut that I'll step by step show you exactly what you can do and how to do it. And I think that's why you alluded to a lot of sort of courses these days, a lot of coaches, because there is so much information out there, people are just confused. They don't know how to do, because every other podcast or every other book that they read gives them a contrarian view and doesn't show them exactly how to do what they need to do.
And I think you're right. There's not a lot of people showing people how. There's a lot of people saying what needs to be done and why it's important, but a lot of people need how. They need to understand the step-by-step. And I truly wish there'd been things like this around 18 years ago when I got started in business. I fumbled along for the first few years not really knowing what I was doing. I just did things that people asked me to do. Had no direction. I just liked my lifestyle, and I was happy to help people, but I didn't really even know what I was going to help people with. And so, I really wish some of what's around today, like mastermind groups, had been around then. So I think, it's easier than ever to start a business if you absolutely have something to do and take advantage of the resources available. So Awesome. Thank you so much, Ronan, for your time today. Anything else to add?
No, that's it, Ingrid. What I can do is I'll give a giveaway if you do show notes.
Sure.
I use the Rockefeller dot system, which is a really simple way of just tracking your daily habits and your weekly habits and your monthly habits. And J.D. Rockefeller, huge oil baron from 100 years ago. So it's the simplest thing ever. What you do is you print out the sheet on the left-hand column, you write down all the things that you are tracking, and at the end of the day, just put a little dot by them. And then at the end of the week and the month, you can see where the habits have been slipping and address those very, very quickly. Because you're right, especially for small business owners, wearing all those hats, we just want to be, there's no one holding us accountable. So you need to find your own way of being more accountable to yourself and following through on those things that you know are important, you know they're going to move the needle, but they're sometimes a little bit uncomfortable when you don't want to do them, or you think you're doing them quite well, and then you look at something like the dot system and think, actually, no, I missed 3 days in a week where I was supposed to be doing cold calling or whatever that is, that hard task you didn't want to do.
That's a nice system. So will we put that in the show notes?
Yes, I'll send you a link so people can sort of get that direct.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for your time today. Thank you.
Thanks, Ingrid.
Thanks for listening. What a story. Can you imagine being on that ship? It's just beyond comprehension, really, isn't it? Anyway, there is a ton of other wisdom in this conversation. You may want to go back and listen to parts of it again, or jump over to my website where there is a full transcript, www.healthynumbers.com.au, and choose the podcast tab. Every podcast transcript is there listed for you. Sometimes it's just quicker to go back and have a quick read through rather than listening to it all again. The Rockefeller dot system referred to, we've added that link right there on the webpage, on the podcast tab, and also in the show notes wherever you're listening. Check it out. I really liked what he had to say about getting started in business, and that ultimately we are all problem solvers. That's it in a nutshell. When we think of ourselves as problem solvers, how does that change the way we approach being in business? For everyone listening, I truly believe that whatever you're dreaming about can become real. These podcasts are designed to inspire and inform about what it takes to start, create, and grow a business of your own. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to rate it on iTunes. And if you have already done that, I thank you enormously. Please leave your comments, because that really helps with how the show gets spread around to more people. We know how it works, don't we? Thanks so much. Anyway, what questions do you have? How can I help you? Email me any question, ingrid@healthynumbers.com.au, and I reply directly. I answer all my mail which comes to that email address. I get some help with some of the other email addresses, but that one I answer all of those personally. As we say, ideas without action, well, they're just that, aren't they? They're ideas. What action are you inspired to take today? Till the next time, thanks for listening.